Hi there. Okay, so I wanted to do a reading with some cards this late evening just to see where we are with things. We have officially entered eclipse season, and I remember listening to a content creator say that the first days of September were going to kind of set the tone for this transit. And I'm not an astrologer, but I believe it has something to do with Pisces, and so I'm sure you can quickly Google and see what that's all about. But what I'm feeling after that first eclipse that was on, I believe, the 7th, it's feeling a little weird, right? Was that yesterday or the day before, the 7th? Things are feeling a little off. So anyway, just wanted to do a reading to see where we're headed with this. How do we get through it? What do we need to do? Those are my questions as I was shuffling, and I'll put the video on the screen somewhere so you can see that I actually shuffled and pulled these cards. But the first one is a 1, and so this deck is the Celestial Bodies deck. It's got a ton of cards. I don't know how many, but it's a fat deck, 84 cards. They're astrology and numerology and an oracle deck. And then it's got 2 volumes. And if you're interested in the deck, there is a link to Art and Oracle in my bio, and you can purchase one. But 1. Okay, so I'm going to go with the intuitive read, and then I'll pull out the book if I feel like I need it. But my question was, how do we get through this period of time, through this administration, based on where we are? What do we need to do, right? And so the first card out was 1. Now 1 is the first number, right? You can't get to 1 if you haven't maybe ended something, I will say, because it starts off the numbers. It is about beginnings. It's about leadership. It's about innovation. It's about walking a path on your own, and maybe some of you all feel that you're doing that, but as a collective, we know that we are in this mess together. And so I'm going to interpret this as meaning that we've got to come up with some fresh ideas here. We've got the street parties happening, if you know what I'm talking about, right? And those are really growing and getting bigger, getting louder, bringing people together, and it's lovely. And I feel like there is maybe something else that we can also be doing. I want to encourage you not to forget your roles so that you chose, right? Because a few months ago, like earlier on in this, closer back to January, lots of intuitives online were saying, hey, you need to figure out what your role's going to be throughout this process. And so this is just a reminder to remember your role. And, if you need to update it, then update it. But we definitely need your voice and your presence. And by that, I don't mean just scrolling and watching videos such as this one, but actively participating in some kind of way. If that's just going out and meeting more of your neighbors, building community with the people that are like-minded with you, because there's also a circle here, right? It's funny how this is the number 1, but it's a circle. And so it talks about leadership, but what kind of leadership are we looking for? We already know the old patriarchal structures no longer work. They haven't worked for quite some time. And couched in that structure is toxic masculinity and toxic femininity, and we see it just flowing and spewing out of the WH all day, every day, mixed in with all of the lies, right? So we don't need more of that kind of leadership. We don't need more leadership that doesn't put us in the center here, right? The citizens. It doesn't take us into consideration. We've had our hand with that. It ain't working no more. We need to innovate some new ideas. We need to come up with some new innovative ideas. This looks like counsel. We talked about that, a while ago. And then we've got the third house. Now, look at how whimsy and beautiful and almost delicate this card is. To me, this is given like intuition. It's given creativity. There's some sort of softness about this card, but there's also curiosity. I want to say some wonder in this card. And I'm going to look up and read a little bit more about the third house, just to make sure that I'm not missing something. So the wings that we see with Mercury, that represents communication, expand, grow, and transform into leaves, seed pods, and neurons. So, okay, there's also an element of nature, an organic flow here. In nature, there are many overlapping themes regarding how we relate, socialize, create community, and proliferate. The third house is the place of early cultivation of the intellect. So I will say that this feels like, if we are connecting it to this one, here's the card of cultivating the intellect. Here's the card of brainstorming, right? Where are we going? That was my question. How do we get through this? So we've got to come up with some new innovative ways. And then here is where we expand those ideas. In the third house, we go to school for the first time. Hey now. And learn to read and write. We form a network of peers, classmates, and meet neighbors as we play, experiencing through touch, learning dexterity via experimentation with new ideas, concepts, and exercises. In the third house, we make intellectual connections with shapes and symbols. So the key words are the primordial symbolic order, poetic thought, primal intellect, semiotics, logos, signs, natural symbols, ordering, use of our hands, walking, and curiosity. So I'm going to also say that this card is representing integration and embodiment. So once we understand what it is that we want, and if we haven't gotten that far, I know collectively we haven't, maybe individually we have, and that again is embodied or enveloped, I would say, in this one card, right? Knowing what we want, even if it's just a feeling, maybe we can't quite articulate it yet, but then this card moves us over into the integration and embodiment of this wanting or knowing what it is that we want, right? So you got to understand that everything starts with us first. I had a reading the other day, for example, and I was telling a woman, I said, once you begin to do more, I'm trying to make sure that I don't talk too much in depth about her reading, but I was given a reading the other day, and I told a woman, once you began to do more of these physical activities that was coming through loud and clear for her to do, you will begin to talk to people about it, and it'll pique their curiosity, and it will allow them little by little to live more of their truth, because that's kind of how it extends out from us, right? We start with ourselves, doing the things that we know are for us to do, deciding on the things that we know will take care of our family, will, help us feel more healthy and more balanced and more alive and more expanded. And then it trickles out, right? It moves out into the spaces around us that we frequent, into the people that we meet. And that is where this card comes in, because that's where that integration and embodiment happens. There's first an idea. There's first something that sounds like, ooh, yep, that sounds good. Maybe I need to join the gym. Whatever it is, right? I'm giving a small example. For the collective, we need new leadership. We already know that. What is the leadership going to look like? And then we begin to talk to people. We began to go to school, as this card said, right, for the first time, figuring it out, hammering out the details, connecting with peers, connecting with people who are like-minded, and we figure out the details, right? And then we integrate. We test parts of the theory. And then through what I have learned recently, through a physical activity, so on the personal level, what I've learned is that embodiment comes also through physical activity. So sometimes, for example, I'll sit down with people in a reading, and what will come through loud and clear is like, oh, you need to do something with your hands. And I'll, of course, give them the specifics on what I mean by that. But for me, for example, my embodiment comes through singing and dancing. So whenever I feel like I'm struggling with something, when there's an idea or something that I know is for me, I've created, maybe an offering, or tried to put it in practice in some kind of way, but I feel like I don't quite got it. I gotta sing and dance it into my body. And for other people, it's different. They've got to do sports. Other people got to create things with their hands. Other people have to, whatever it is, play instruments. So there's always that physical element I've noticed more recently, within the last 8-9 months here, that allows us to really bring it into our being, right? Into who we are and into our reality. And so this card is given all of that for me, based on what I read about it, and I'm absolutely loving it. Now, on the collective note, this is where we get together, right? This is where if we have signed up, for example, to go to different street parties. What are we calling those things? The parties in the street. If we feel like that is our role that we are to play, then that's where a part of this happens, right? Out amongst the other people on the streets, holding your signs, maybe singing and dancing, depending on what the vibe is, marching, shouting in unison, protecting others, right? And then for someone like me, who has signed up to kind of hold the door for other people and be like, hey, no, we're going this way, we're moving this way, right? It still happens among the people, talking to those that are just about ready, nearly ready, because there's also a level of, like an understanding of who I am to assist, right? And it's those that are already there. They just need a little permission. They just need to be told, hey, yep, I'm already over here, walk this way. And so that's where it happens collectively. It can also happen when we are just out in the community spaces where we feel connected to others, right? Doing other activities that aren't directly related to resisting and persisting. They're all related at this point, right? But if you're out in a community garden with others, planting vegetables, harvesting vegetables, sharing resources that way, and taking care of the land. So, okay, number 33. Oof. I'm just going to take a deep breath with this one. Look at this card. Doesn't it look like a vertebrae in the middle, kind of twisted up here, with snake heads on either side? I'm going to have to read a little bit about this card, but I know that 33 represents Christ consciousness. And Christ consciousness is all about love in the most profound, deepest, I want to say unrelenting love. I had over the last few weeks or so, the frequency of love has just been coming in and meeting me at random times of the day. One day I heard Sade playing in my head, Kiss of Life, I think it was. And I turned it on, and then the next song on the list to play was Stevie Wonder, As. And oh my God, I hit play on Stevie, and I was just in full-blown love mode, standing over there at the kitchen sink. And I was like, what in the world just happened? It was just like a wave that hit me, and I could feel my heart opening up, and I could feel it coming in, and I could feel it flowing all through me. And I remember thinking, like, man, Jesus, like, is this what you were feeling when you were walking around here? How did you do it? Because it's really overwhelming. It can be extremely overwhelming and beautiful at the same time. So let's also see. And that has been rolling through in waves since then. And not only for me either. I was talking to a couple of my intuitive friends, and they were saying the same thing around the same exact time. They were like, did you guys feel all that love coming in? I was like, yep. And I danced around the kitchen singing Stevie Wonder for probably way too long, but it was, it felt all too good. So, okay, 33. Let's see. Okay, yep. Christ consciousness, love, unity, spirituality, kindness, and visionary. Those are the key terms. The master number 33 represents Christ consciousness and love in its purest form. Its mission in life is to be a masterful healer and visionary for all of humanity. As a double 3, the 33 exemplifies the enthusiasm, creativity, and heartfelt communication of the 3, while also tapping into the nurturing spirit of the 6. It is the 33's purpose to lead by example, teaching all of humanity the power of unconditional love. Okay. In its shadow, it acts as a transmuter, enduring oppression and difficult challenges throughout its life. It's not that the 33 is being punished, but it has much to heal through its own experiences before it can begin to heal others. It must learn to stay open and lean into its sensitivity instead of closing and hardening to the struggles of this world. Now, I will say on a collective note, this card is, in addition to, the other 2 cards that came out, got to be innovative, find some new things, find new ways to lead. We've got to flesh out the ideas, find our people who are going to help us build out and implement those ideas. And then here we come in with the 33. That is, and I just kind of lost my train of thought, so give me one second. Oh, yes, to heal through its own experiences before it can heal others. It must learn to stay open and lean into its sensitivity instead of closing and hardening. So we can look, while we're trying to flesh out these ideas, we can look to other countries and see how they're doing it, see how they're getting on, see how their people are, just living a little better, a little freer with the things that they need, right? Because the United States, it's kind of like we're going to have to not start over, but really do some things radically. We're really going to have to make some radical changes that are extremely different than what we currently have in order for us to go on and move forward here, right? And so we're going to have to look to some others who may have already been doing it, even if it's smaller communities, even if it's countries that we would normally consider to be leaders, right? We are looking for different type of leadership. I mean, the Swedes got it pretty good, I believe. Denmark and Norway, if I'm not mistaken. Right? I won't say everything is perfect, but it seems like it's going a whole heck of a lot better than it is over here. So we're going to have to find some new ways of doing things and allow ourselves to stay open to be schooled and taught some things as well. We also have to stay open to, we got to just stay open, right? To knowing that we will get through this, that it is not set in stone, that this will not be the way that we continue to live indefinitely, right? That this regime has an expiration date. And we can't allow ourselves to harden into whatever's going on as if it's the only reality, right? The only choice that we have. Because if we do that, then they win. And we're not doing that, right? They do not win. They cannot win. We casted our vote a long time ago, back in November. We know who won, really. So we've got to also not allow ourselves to lose ourselves to the fear and to the, oh my God, this is taking forever, I can't do it, right? No, we have to do it. There's no choice. We also have to keep love and compassion and empathy in the front of our minds and hearts, because that's the antidote, that's the balm, that's the serum, that's the medicine for all of the things that are falling apart in front of us. That was the missing ingredient. It's why they're falling apart. So I love that Christ consciousness showed up. Jesus is dope outside of religion, because he was never religious anyway. But he is absolutely phenomenal. And look at this card though. It's like it's given foundation because of this vertebrae. I'm thinking like the root chakra. But then, it's a spine, so it's connecting through many of the chakras. But then also we've got these snakes on the side, on either side. And so it feels like it's talking a little bit about deception, about illusions, and reminding us to come back to the truth. If we get lost and we need to find our way back to the truth, it might sound sappy, but follow the love, right? The love in your heart. You can start right there. So now we come to number 7. Now if you notice though, the artwork has kind of changed here. Here it started off pretty sturdy with that ring, right? And then we got pretty freeform and flowy here and softer. And then it became a bit more structured. And now we're back to a more sturdy figure. So let's see what the 7 is about, because I don't quite remember. It's the seeker, the philosopher, the introverted, knowledge, study, truth, spirituality, analytical, meditative, focused, and abstract. Okay. The 7 is the number of the seeker. It is the most spiritual of all the numbers, but not in the way the 2 is. While the 2 is spiritual in a cosmic, otherworldly sense, the 7 is spiritual in a grounded, studious, and philosophical way. It tends to be highly sensitive and introverted. The 7's path is often a solitary and inward journey. They came here in the pursuit of knowledge in order to share their findings and wisdom with humanity. It came in order to share their findings and wisdom with humanity. They are often sought out teachers and viewed as insightful visionaries in their own right. So the 7 can be extremely private, which can lead to isolation, and it must learn to balance healthy social interaction with solitude. This sounds like okay, we opened ourselves up to all the ideas. We even looked outside to different countries and different ways of leading and different types of leaders and different ways of organizing society and systems that we can create. And now we've kind of got to bring it back in and balance it against what we know that we need collectively as a people, because we are a different country, right? What will actually work? What can we sustain in an actual sustainable way, right? Not in the ways that we've already done, because we're looking to do something entirely different. I don't know what that looks like. I know that it looks more circular than anything. I know that it looks like smaller groups leading different areas than, one politician or a group that is totally disconnected from the rest of the population in terms of experience and understanding, right? So this is where we bring it back in and we refine it and we get the solid plan together. Okay. And then what do we got? The feminine card. Well, this has been coming up for months and months on top of months, right? This is the kind of leadership that we need. It's got to be circle. We've got to lead with feminine energy. And I want to go a little deeper with that, because I know that a lot of us have a surface level understanding of what masculine energy is versus feminine energy. But the truth is, the deeper we go in both of those directions, they converge. They converge into one beautiful, creative, structured flow. So masculine energy in general is not bad, right? In its truest form, it is structure, it is truth, it's stability. But in its toxic version, which is what we see coming out of the WH all day, every day, it's destructive, it's chaotic, it's disorderly, and feminine energy is intuition, it's creativity and flow. But in its toxic version, as we're also seeing coming out of the WH, with all of the women upholding the patriarchal order of their administration, it's subservient to that toxic masculinity, right? It does any and everything needed to keep it intact, because it functions and it exists based upon its proximity to that. But this is about feminine energy in its truest, most authentic form. And together with positive masculinity, well, they create a symbiotic, fluid rhythm. That takes me back to this card. I believe it was this one where that word symbiotic came up. But it creates that symbiotic fluid rhythm. And so this is where we're headed, right? Towards divine feminine leadership. It's already here, the divine feminine. But do not think for a second, because we got to go through all of this. The end has had to end, and a new start has had to begin, and we've had to walk ourselves through the process. And then our divine feminine leader shows up. This may be Kamala. That's who I'm thinking about. But it's not her role, right? Because we're talking about roles. Everyone has one. It's not her role to get us through all of this. She doesn't show up until we've gotten ourselves through that process as a collective. And it won't be perfect, no. But that's when a leadership like hers can show up. And while we're on this subject of roles, mine, for example, is to turn around and tell people, hey, yeah, you're headed in the right direction. It's this way, right as they're about to walk over the threshold. And I also help those who have just crossed the threshold and who are trying to figure out what to make of it, which way to go, right? Some of our roles happen farther back. I'll say a line for the sake of example. It's not a line really, but let's just envision a line. So some of our roles are happening further back on that line. The MAGAs who have just taken off their red hats, they're all the way in the back of the line, right? The folks who are still knee deep in that cult, they're not even on the line. But what I want to encourage those who are farther back on the line to do is to really help those who are struggling to understand that we're not going to vote ourselves out of this mess. That we can't just wait for 2026 or 2028 to have something change. I really want to encourage you to help them come to an understanding if that is your role. It's not mine because I don't have the patience, right? But for those who are offering that kind of support to others, help them understand, please. Why? Because if they are still holding tight to the idea that we can vote ourselves out of this situation, they're going to lose their minds when they realize how undone and how rotting from the inside these systems are, and how they have just fallen apart and are nothing but ash at our feet. They're going to have a hard time with that. And so if we can start that deconstructing process now, then maybe it can soften some of the blow, right, as they begin to experience it. I often wonder, because I've been swimming over here in the unknown for a very long time, and I wonder sometimes, have you just kind of coursed through life and haven't really had a period of time where you've gone through the unknown about something, where you've had to walk out, everybody's headed this direction, and you're like, I gotta go this way? I don't think that's a universal experience. I could be wrong. And if it is, on a smaller scale, then you can kind of use that idea to help bridge the gap for them in their understanding. But I will say a lot of people are still rooted in that idea of, oh, let's just vote the other way this time, or let's just make sure that we do a better job voting. And it's like our system is so, it's no longer a system. It is so broken and busted that that's just not the answer. It goes back to having to create something entirely new. And if that's the thinking, they're going to have a hard time understanding why this is necessary and how to do it. Because it's not just the out there that has to be renewed, right? It's the in here as well. So, okay. Just wanted to throw that out there. Our card on the bottom of the deck is the 9. Now look at this. We go from this one that was 2 cards back to where it's solid. It's coming together. Then the Divine Feminine jumps in. Divine Feminine leadership. And then we get to this solid structure. Now I'm going to take a step back because I realize I don't know if I read on this card, but I do want to pull some insights from the book about this. The feminine principle is what goes downward, inward, and towards the earth. Associations of womb, ocean, moon, prayers whispered at cusps of day and night, dampness, weight, intuition, heart, merge, nurture, darkness, cycles of emptiness and fullness, and dreaming, all from the feminine. Dionysian rather than Apollonian. Circular. Harmony over separation. Key terms: private womb, mother, softness, water, harmony. In the light, the feminine seeks to build foundations of emotional resonance, ones which nurture and provide sustenance for all beings in the world. The feminine principle is oriented towards immersion with nature rather than domination of it. Yes and yes. And is attuned to cycles of life in the deepest, most embodied way possible. I love that. It's oriented towards immersion with nature rather than domination of it. That is also a characteristic of pure and true masculinity, right? It can lead without dominating, right? It can provide structure and be a container for the vulnerable without being overbearing and overpowering. All right, awesome. Okay, and our last card was 9. The humanitarian, giving, death, rebirth, the idealist, philanthropic, morality, trusting, integrity. So the 9 is the number of the humanitarian. It is here to help heal the wounds of all it comes into contact with. It is self-sacrificing without the desire to receive anything in return. Its drive in life is to help others, and it is absolutely genuine. The cornerstone of this number is at the intersection of compassion and tolerance for all. It is noble and oftentimes expresses its love for humanity through the art of politics and philanthropy. Sometimes the 9 is so busy giving to others that it forgets to give to itself. It runs the risk of burning out when it puts all other matters before its own needs. In order to give back to the world, it must learn to give to itself first. It can also at times appear aloof. The 9 can become so concerned with the suffering of others that it's hard to be singular, focused, and accomplish its goals. Okay, So that's the risk of the 9. But in its positive light mode, it's about humanitarianism. It's about giving. It's about supporting, right? I feel like this is us after we come together, right? After we figure out what it is we really need and want, we flesh out that idea. We remember that love is at the core of it. And what was 7? We build something solid. And we refine what that is, right? And then the feminine steps in, and then we learn to embrace each other in this. This is given like, let the sunshine in, those 5D feels that we're all sick of hearing about and ready to experience. Okay, I absolutely love this reading. And what I particularly love about these cards is that the readings that they provide or, bring out are multi-layered. The way that my brain works, the way that my guides speak to me. So I will say, when I tuned in and asked my guides about this period of time, I got solar system in my head, and that is not right. The eclipses, right? This eclipse season, the rest of this administration, how do we endure? What do we need to do? And I said, this period of time is feeling like, what is the word? And I couldn't quite pull it. And I heard stasis. And I thought, that's interesting. I know say stasis to mean that it's a period of inactivity. And so I looked it up just to see if there was something more. And sure enough, it doesn't only mean inactivity. It also means a period of civil strife. And I thought, damn, that's perfect. That's the perfect word for what we are experiencing right now, because on one hand, it kind of feels like we're not moving, right? We keep waking up like it's Groundhog's Day in this hellish reality again and again. But then on the other hand, all of this civil strife is happening around us and, well, within us. So, in a nutshell, during this period of time, we need to figure out, we need to remember what it is that we said that we want to see out there, right? When all the intuitives were saying, hey, decide what it is that you want to see in the world. Put those dreams out there. Let them percolate. Chat it up with other people about it. We need to remember what those things were that we decided were good to move forward with. Because on the other side of this, and it looks like, if this is 1, we somewhere near the ending of this shit already. And I'll say already because, well, in the grand scheme of things, it just hasn't been that long. If we think about it in a historical context, right? So we're going to have to not only be thinking about those things, we're going to have to start expanding on those things and hammering out the details of what it actually would look like, how it would function. Now, I also remember Chani, the astrologer, saying, this eclipse season is going to be really hard if you haven't been doing your work. But it's going to be a really good period of time if you have, right? And so, a lot of us, we kind of did some of the work of this back then when all the intuitives were suggesting that we should, including me. I don't know where to look at on this thing. That's why I keep looking around the screen. Camera's over here. Okay. But it's time to pull out those ideas and see if we can add to them, see what we need to update about it, see what we've learned, see if we can elaborate, talk to some other folks, and begin to actually live it, right, in ways that we can. Maybe that looks like going out to community gardens, if that's your thing, for example, and figuring out how to help people grow some vegetables and flowers, how to plant things, how to harvest it. It's time to like start doing this, you know, a little more, this part of things a little more. We don't have to fully wait until the shoe drops to begin stepping over into the energy of the thing that we want, because it will expand, it will grow, it will extend, it will eventually connect in a larger way for the collective. So, okay, I think that might be all for today. Did I forget anything? I love this deck. I might be back again with it. I feel like this is my favorite deck right now. Again, it's called the Celestial Bodies, an 84 card astrology and numerology and oracle deck with 2 volumes of books in it. Extremely insightful, very profound, and absolutely stunning the artwork is. So check it out in the link in my bio if you're interested, and I will see you next time.